everybody, and welcome to another installment of Innovation Industries YouTube channel. Today what we're going to be going over is measuring swing returns for proper fit. What you'll see here in my hand are the Innovation Industries standard swing return survey sheets. You have one for a right hand hinge as well as one for a left hand hinge swing. Now the swing we'll be working with today is a right hand swing, so we're going to go ahead and disregard this left hand. Now, we won't actually be taking any measurements today, or we won't be writing any down anyway. We're going to take measurements of the basics, and each swing's built in a different way, so there actually may be more measurements than what's involved with this swing on the swing you will be working on. So we're going to start off, and I always work linearly in my own little progression, and the first measurement I like to take is the width. So we're going to measure, and we're measuring from the edge of the metal. This over here is actually the dust cover, or the box as it's referred to. So we're going to catch the edge of that lip right there on the metal, and then we're going to measure over to the first bend, which gives us 19 inches. And now we're going to measure the jam depth of the swing. So we'll measure from the first bend to the second bend, and that gives us 3.5. Next, we're going to measure our mounting holes, which keep the swing closed, or latch it closed whenever it's been installed. And we're just going to catch the bottom here and measure this first mounting hole, and that's going to be 2 inches. Now this particular swing only has 2 mounting holes for the jam side. Some of them will have 3, some will have 4. It just depends on what type of swing it was and how it was installed. Now remember, the one at the bottom was 2 inches, but you can't always assume that the one at the top is spaced an equal distance. So we're going to measure it, and it comes out to be 1 inch on center. So that was a good thing we measured instead of assuming that the bottom matched the top. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a measurement from bottom to top, or top to bottom, depending on what you prefer, to get the total height of our swing. This swing is 95.5 inches. Now we're going to go ahead and open it up and go into some detail on some inside measurements. I'm just going to kind of gradually work my way down on this. We're going to measure from the second bend to the third bend, which in some cases this one actually has a third bend. Some just have a second bend, which makes the lip, this underside will be the lip on this one. So we'll go ahead and measure this bend, and it comes out to 1.25 inches. And then we'll get up in here and measure behind on the lip, and we'll get 1 1/8 inches for that. So those are all important measurements to have. Now the next thing is a little trickier. It's probably the most tedious part of measuring a swing. What we need to know is where to set our studs on the swing return to mount the hinge. So what you want to do is get in here. This one's a little trickier, but we want to know this top distance from the bottom edge of this swing to the top of the hinge, because we want to know how thick we can make the hinge. And on this one, you can eyeball it down through there and you get 1 7/8 inches. So that gives us an approximate dimension on how thick the hinge needs to be. Now we want to start measuring these mounting holes or the stud holes. Now this one right here is mounted to the dust cover or the box. Okay? That one there is studded onto the subplate of the swing. If you want to reuse your box, then we would need all these measurements, and we want to go from the bottom of the swing on up, and we would want to know from the bottom of the swing, where does the hinge start? From the bottom of the swing, where does this mounting hole start? From the bottom of the swing, where does the next mounting hole for the subplate start? And of course, to do that, you would just catch from the bottom, and we can see the first one is 1 3/4 inches up from the bottom of the swing, and then the next one is 5.5 inches up from the bottom of the swing. So this distance to this distance gets us the measurement. Now I'm not going to go and individually measure each mounting hole and stud location, but it gives you a good idea of what you'll need to do. Now this swing is actually a good example, excuse me, because normally on a swing return we would make the piano hinge extend from the very top to the bottom, maybe gap it a little, 1/4 of an inch each way. This one, as you can see, the hinge stops here and you have this whole open area. So measuring the hinge, the entire length of the hinge, is an important thing to know. That way we would know that the dust cover mounts stop here and there's no need for a hinge beyond that point. Next, if you are reusing your dust cover or your box, we need to know how much clear space we have to work with so that we don't put a device in a way that it intersects with the dust cover or catches it in some way. And then of course that's a simple measurement there, and we get 15 3/4. So we know that we have 15 3/4 inch of clear space to fit our devices, to fit serial boards, to fit emergency light packs, whatever we need to fit. Now the last point, I'm going to close this swing and I'm going to talk about it. It's something that sometimes confuses people, which is understandable, and I'm going to do my best to explain it. But on all our survey sheets, you will see center line of devices, which is not to be misconstrued with the center of the width, or the width divided by 2. That doesn't really do us any good, because we can take the width and divide it by 2 to know where the center of the width is. We want the center of the devices, because you have to keep in mind that a cab wall is going to be lapping over this side, and we want to center the buttons, the fire cabinet, and the PIs with the cab wall. So when the cab wall is installed, everything's centered and you get a nice clean look. And I'll give you an example. You can see on this one we have 6 1/4 from this edge to the edge of the fire cabinet, and then when you measure it this way we have 5 1/2. So we know that we have more metal on this side than we do on this side. For a good point of reference, what I like to do, and the easiest way to do it, is measure from your first bend on your jam side to something like a button. And these work particularly well because they have center jewels in them, so it makes it easy to pinpoint the measurement. So we just measure from this jam side to the center of this button, and we get 10 inches. And now we know the center line of our devices is 10 inches from the first bend to the center of the buttons. And that is the basics of measuring a swing return. Thanks for watching, and if you have any requests or ideas, please feel free to contact us.